Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something that is absolutely going to flip how you look at modern cybercrime. We're pulling back the curtain on a threat that, well, it used to be just an IT headache, right? But now, it's morphed into this massive, highly organized global extortion economy. By the end of our time today, you're going to know exactly why the old playbook for network security is basically obsolete, and more importantly, how you can actually gear up for what's coming. Let's just jump right in.
So what is ransomware? I want you to picture that classic Hollywood hacking scene. You know the exact one I'm talking about, right? A lone guy in a dark basement room, hood up, just furiously mashing a keyboard until he locks up some poor executive's laptop with a giant red skull flashing on the screen. For the longest time, that was exactly how we all pictured it. But we really need to ask ourselves, is that actually what we're dealing with today?
Okay, let's break this down. If you look up the textbook definition, you'll see ransomware described exactly like this: malicious software that encrypts files and demands payment for their release. And, technically, that is true, but it's also wildly incomplete for the threats we're seeing right now. It completely misses the massive scale and the corporate-level structure of the danger that organizations are facing today. To really get the threat, we have to look at how the whole game shifted. Back in the day, attackers just wanted to lock you out of your files. If you had a solid backup, you just restored your system and told the hackers to get lost. But these criminal groups are smart, and they adapted. They moved from that old model to a really scary new reality that we call double extortion. What does that mean? Well, now they steal your most sensitive data first, way before they ever lock your files. That gives them massive leverage. Now, you aren't just scrambling to get your operations back online, you're staring down the barrel of a public data breach, which means regulatory fines, commercial disaster, and total reputational ruin. This totally changes the game. It turns what used to be a standard IT ticket into a full-blown, coordinated business crisis. They aren't just locking your files anymore. They're setting up countdown timers on the dark web threatening to leak your data. They're throwing denial-of-service attacks at you to crash your websites while you're trying to recover. They'll literally even harass your customers, your business partners, and journalists just to turn up the heat. It's a pressure cooker designed to force executives into making massive decisions under the absolute worst possible conditions.
Just look at the sheer numbers from 2025 to wrap your head around the scale here. The FBI got over 3,600 ransomware complaints in that 1 year alone. And those complaints, they added up to reported direct losses of over $32 million. And while that was happening, Europol was tracking more than 120 active ransomware brands operating all over the globe. That is just a staggering amount of direct financial damage happening right under our noses.
But here's the truly scary part. That $32 million, it is barely a drop in the bucket, just the tip of the iceberg. Because if you really look at the reality, that figure completely ignores all the devastating business interruption costs, the massive fees you have to pay forensic teams to clean up the mess, and honestly, all the incidents that companies just quietly sweep under the rug and handle without ever calling the authorities. The real financial drain on the global economy is exponentially higher than what's actually paid out in ransoms. Think of modern ransomware a lot like a fast food franchise. It's wild, but we call it the ransomware as a service economy. You've got platform operators taking a 35% cut just to build the tools. Then the affiliates, the guys actually breaking into the networks, they take 40%. Access brokers get 15% for selling stolen passwords, and specialized launderers take 10% just to wash the crypto. It's a highly structured division of labor, and it radically lowers the technical skills you need to actually pull off an attack.
Because they use this franchise model, it is crazy to think that an attacker today doesn't even need to know how to write a line of code. The operators serve up absolutely everything on a silver platter. We're talking custom malware, slick customer service portals for ransom negotiations, pre-built dark web sites for leaking data, and all the IT infrastructure you could ever need. Literally, all a budding cybercriminal needs is some operational discipline and the willingness to use the tools they're given. They buy the service, they deploy it, and they split the profits. It's quite literally plug-and-play cybercrime.
Let's walk through how this actually goes down. Because once they target you, it is definitely not an instant event. Attackers sneak in, usually through a phishing email, a missed security patch, or by buying an open door from one of those brokers. And then, they just sit there. They enter this terrifyingly slow phase called dwell time. They map out your entire environment. They escalate their privileges so they have admin control, they hunt down your juiciest data, and they quietly siphon it all out. It's only at the very, very end, after they've stolen the crown jewels, that they actually pull the trigger on the ransomware. The sudden lockdown you see, that's just the final flashy finale of a really long, really quiet break-in. Which brings us to a really harsh reality. Data theft changes the extortion calculation permanently. Remember how I said back in the day a good isolated backup could save you? Well, backups cannot unsteal your data. If they grab your customer records, your trade secrets, or your private legal documents, you are completely exposed. And frankly, even if you pay the ransom and they promise to delete it, there's literally zero guarantee they haven't already sold a copy to another group on the dark web. You are stuck with lingering fraud and privacy risks for years.
Let's step out of the technical weeds for a second and just look at the real-world devastation this causes, because we are talking about severe physical and economic consequences here. When a hospital network gets hit, life-saving surgeries are literally postponed. When manufacturing plants are targeted, entire global production lines just grind to a dead halt. When public administration gets breached, everyday citizens lose access to basic, essential services. This isn't just a computer glitch, right? It's about our society functioning safely.
And the financial bleeding? It definitely doesn't stop at the ransom demand. Organizations get slammed with massive hidden costs. You're looking at hemorrhaging revenue from weeks, sometimes months of complete downtime. You have to bring in incredibly expensive forensic investigators, you might have to replace entire fleets of compromised laptops and servers, and you better brace yourself for the inevitable lawsuits and regulatory fines. Oh, and your cyber insurance premiums? Those are going to skyrocket. The pressure this puts on everyday employees and senior leadership is just immense.
So all of this builds into an entirely different, incredibly high-stakes realm of risk. Because of everything we've just talked about, deciding whether or not to pay that ransom is no longer just a quick IT fix. The whole narrative shifts right here. Paying a ransom is a compliance decision. It is a total financial crime and legal minefield that puts your entire executive board squarely in the crosshairs of federal regulators.
Making that payment involves a staggering web of interconnected parties. Think about it. You are trying to transfer massive funds to a totally anonymous criminal counterparty. That means you have to scramble to bring in sanction screening experts, outside legal advisors, law enforcement, specialized hostage negotiators, and crypto brokers. And if you accidentally facilitate a payment to a sanctioned person or a banned country, your organization and even the partners helping you can face absolutely massive legal liabilities. This is never, ever just an ordinary business expense.
Naturally, these ransom payments are pretty much always demanded in cryptocurrency, mainly because it perfectly bypasses traditional banking networks. But here is the really fascinating twist on that. While crypto definitely enables the crime, it also enables the investigation. See, public blockchains preserve a permanent, unchangeable record of every single transaction, so law enforcement can actually trace exactly where those proceeds go. Authorities are getting really good at targeting this laundering infrastructure, freezing digital wallets, seizing servers, and effectively cutting the criminals off from their cash.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is, how do we actually defend against a threat that is this complex? The strongest defense is a deeply layered strategy of resilience. You just can't buy one magic bullet software product and call it a day. You need strict management of your assets and user identities. You absolutely must have phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication. You need rigorous patching schedules, network segmentation to trap the hackers if they get in, and centralized detection to spot them during that slow dwell time we talked about way before the encryption even starts.
And we have to talk about backups, because this is where so many companies completely drop the ball. Having a backup is completely useless if it's connected to your main network, unencrypted, and untested. Why? Because the attackers will just find it and delete it before they ever encrypt your main systems. A truly reliable backup must be totally isolated, heavily encrypted, locked down from admin access, and, most importantly, regularly tested through realistic fire drills. If you cannot restore your systems quickly and safely when everything is on fire, you don't actually have a backup.
Another incredibly powerful tool in your arsenal is data minimization. It's such a simple concept, but it works. You can't lose what you don't have. By identifying, controlling, and holding on to sensitive information only for a very specific, defined purpose, and then actually deleting it when you don't need it anymore, you are directly taking away the leverage an attacker has over you. Less valuable data sitting around on your servers literally means less ammunition for them to use in double extortion.
But, if the absolute worst happens and they do get in, your immediate, coordinated response is everything. Whatever you do, do not panic and just indiscriminately yank the power cords. That can actually destroy crucial digital evidence. Your priorities have to be to contain the intrusion, preserve the evidence, get law enforcement on the line immediately, figure out exactly what data was touched, and really carefully validate that your systems are trustworthy again before you reconnect them to the internet. You have to have a rehearsed plan for this, with very clear lines of who is in charge.
To bring this all together, we have to stop thinking of ransomware as just an IT problem. It's not. It is a sprawling, multi-layered financial crime business. It intersects directly with anti-money laundering, fraud, international sanctions, and top-level crisis management. That means your financial crime, legal, and privacy teams absolutely have to be on the same page with predefined roles long before an incident ever actually happens.
I want to leave you with this final thought. Take a really hard look at your own organization's readiness. Ransomware absolutely thrives when a single tiny intrusion can spiral into an existential corporate crisis. Your goal is to flip that script. Make a compromise easy to contain, make your recovery bulletproof, and make it as difficult as humanly possible for them to monetize your pain. So I'll ask you, if your network was breached today, right this very second, is your business truly ready for the extortion economy? Think about that one. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.